All right. We're back. It's COMP1006, and we are Intro to Web Programming, and it's in the winter 2017 semester here at Georgian, and we are week 3 already, part 1 of our broadcasts in this compressed schedule. I did have some people come with me to B230. It looks like it's a common occurrence now. We just run to B230, right? Which is okay. We can keep doing that. I don't mind if we do that every single time if we need to. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. But the B230 stuff is kind of individual help is what I've been doing so far. So if there's anything that I need to do individually, sometimes if I do something extra and we record something, then yeah, it'll be an addendum that I'll record, right? But typically, no. Typically, we won't. If we need to have a conversation, absolutely, we can set it up. I can meet with you. There are certain times I'm available, and I am here on Mondays as well. So Mondays after 3, I think we can get together. I'm available. I'm here on site, as well as later on today. But I'm not sure if everyone can hang out. Okay, so last week we kind of did some stuff, and I want to bring up some things that we did last week. We talked about simple variable declaration, and I had a PowerPoint to that effect. This week, we're right into chapter 4 of the book, where we're connecting with MySQL or MySQL database, right? Now, this is where it gets more complex, the course, right? So the course is kind of fairly easy in terms of what the content is. The complexity comes when we start making connections to the database, and things don't work out as they're supposed to. So first of all, question. Do we have a database to connect to right now? Do we have a database? No. Let's make one, right? I'm on the Windows side. I'm just going to close this down for a second, right? And what I want to do is I want to continue what we did last week with COMP1006. So I've got lesson 1. I did kind of lesson 2 on the Mac side. Remember what I've been doing with the Mac side? I kind of pull it over. Right, so if I did a lesson with COMP1006 somewhere, here it is. I have lesson 2. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to bring it over to lesson 1. And then what I want to do is I want to copy and paste. So copy and paste. There we go. And make this lesson 3. Right, so I want to kind of continue. Right, so I'm in Windows. Right, and here's my lesson 3. It's exactly the same as lesson 2, maybe even the same as lesson 1. And I'm going to bring up VS Code. Is VS Code the best PHP editor? I'm finding out that no, it's probably not. That's okay, because we don't really need a big editor. All I need is for you to understand the syntax right now. So here's, lesson 3. What I am missing in lesson 3, if I kind of look in here, notice that there is no Git repository right here. How about in lesson 1? Is there a Git repository? Yes, there is. The .git folder indicates that there is. Right? I want to make one for lesson 3, right? And what I'm going to do here is, and again, just to check to see if there's anything, if I made it somewhere outside of this before I doubled my work, right? Just one sec. While I do a scan, I don't see it. So, like I said, if I go back to this, I want to make this a Git repository here for lesson 3, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring up my command prompts. I'm going to drag and drop lesson 3 inside here, so CD to lesson 3, right? Here it is. Lesson 3 and lesson 2 are identical right now, but it doesn't matter. And what are my commands for Git? You guys did this last week. The people who came with me last time should know what are the commands that I need to use. First command, when I want to initialize a repository in Git, git init. What's my second command, but I'm going to initialize in Git? Huh? What is it? Git add. Git add dot. Git add dot means add everything, right? Get you to grab that door. It's okay. He's good. And the next one is git commit minus M for message initial commit, right? So that does my initial commit. There we are. I want to clear the screen. And if I do a git log, I can see that I have 1 commit, right? That's what I have right now. Here's something for some of you, right? I may have another installation of Git that you might want to use more. And I know I've been solving some problems with some people that have this problem, the same problem that some people have. They can't connect to Git properly. So I'm looking at my program files, and notice that in my program files, I have a Git installation here too, right? And the way I got that is I went up online and I went to git-scm.com, right? And I downloaded Git for Windows. Right, here's Git for Windows. This is really good to do. And what this does is if you have a problem with your path, if you have a problem with your unrecognized command, if your Git doesn't remember who you are, this is the way to do it. You download and install Git from git-scm, and it'll fix you. When you do that, right, be careful of some of the, you'll come up with a little wizard and it'll ask you some questions. One of the things you want to put in there, make sure that you don't uncheck add to path, because that's what it's going to do. It's going to add your Git to path, which is what you want, right? If you haven't done it already. So this is a quick fix if you want to fix it. What it does is it creates this folder with Git bash. And if I double click on Git bash, you get actually a better version of your terminal. Now it's hard for you to see. I'm going to make it bigger. So make my Git bash bigger, just so you guys can see it. So I'm going to go to text. And it's black as well, so it's kind of hard to see, but that's okay, right? So I want to change my font. I like Lucida Console, that's okay. But I want to make it much bigger, like 14 or something like that, right? There. Right, this is cool. Huh?
It's not better use Cygwin.
Bear with me with this one. You might like it, all right? There's always different ones. There's, it's the same as using PowerShell in some ways, right? So I want to modify my VS Code installation, but so instead of it launching my default terminal window, it will launch my beautiful Git bash, which gives me some extra stuff, this stuff here, right? How does that work? Well, my terminal, my editor here has some options. If I go to File, and if I go to Preferences, Workspace Settings, notice that on the right in my workspace settings, I could set the size of my font size. So if I say, well, you know what? If you said, Tom, your editor is too small, could I change my font size, right? Could I change my font size from 14? Can you make it 16 for me, Tom? And the answer is if I save this, it becomes 16, or maybe I want to make it 18, right? So let's make it 18. This is 18. You can see that I can adjust my font size to whatever I want based on my selection, right? But I can also do other things with the editor, and an example of that is my terminal, right? So terminal.external, try this out, .external, and then what I want to do is, if I can spell it, .windows exec, Windows executable. Now notice it's an underline because I need to put a comma here. So I'm changing this property. And I'm just going to get rid of this part for a second so you can see it, okay? So here's my terminal external window executable. And notice in here, I have a path. What I want to put in is the path to my program files. And it's going to be something like this, right? Follow me here if you're interested. C:\program files, right? /git-bash.exe. Now you'd have to have installed Git from git-scm to do this. It has to be installed inside of your C program files Git like this. Okay. Now when I do this, I still get an error, and the reason why is because it is interpreting my backslashes as escape characters. And to fix that, I'm going to escape the escape characters by putting double backslashes like this. Now there's no error. So now this is a raw string, right? Okay, I'm going to leave it up here for a second. If you want to try and do this, you can do this. Terminal external window exec. You can point to any of your windows. If you want to use Win, that one, instead of using command prompt, you can set it up here. You can point to it right here. So when you go to your external editor and go right-click, open in command prompt, it'll open there, right? So you'll have a nice whatever editor whatever terminal you like, right? Which is nicer. I like this one, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, how do I test it? So I'm going to first of all close this down, go back to my solution, look at my index.html or some other file, right? And I'm going to right-click inside my solution and open in command prompt. And when I do that, I get this, which is nice. Why is it nice? It's on the next line. That's why it's nice. Because I have a very long path, like you, right? And you can't see what I'm doing on the right-hand side. Sometimes my path is cut off. It goes to the next line. This way you can see what I'm doing, okay? So if you want to set up like I did, set up that external terminal, right? Terminal.external.windows exec, and you put that in your under preferences in your workspace settings. You can set that up. Okay, so this is good. I've got my master branch. I set up I did my whole git init and all that stuff. Now I want to connect this to GitHub. I want to connect this to GitHub, all right? So I don't have a GitHub repository yet. I'm going to make one. So here's GitHub. I'm going to make a new repository on GitHub. I'm going to call it COMP, right? 1006, right? Dash Windows or Winter 2017, if I can speak today. Lesson 3, right? That's what it is. COMP 1006, W2017, lesson 3, and press enter. It's going to give you these lines, this instructions on how to connect to it. I've already done all this, right? And I just need to do these two things. Well, if you're using Git Bash, if I right-click and copy, and I go to Git Bash and right-click and paste, it puts it in, executes the first one, and I'm well on our way to executing my last one by pressing enter. And when I do that, if I did everything correctly, and if it knows who you are, it's going to push it to GitHub. So this is very nice. I like this a little better, and I did it for a couple people, and it worked nicely, right? So if you're someone who doesn't like the built-in command prompt for Windows, I think Git Bash is definitely an alternative that's nice. All right, but we need something else today. Today is not about Git. Today is not about VS Code. I'm going to accept the errors that come up in VS Code today. I'm going to ignore them, right? Today is about how do I connect to the database? How do I do that? How do I read from the database? What does that look like? Have you guys done any database at all? So you guys should know something about databases. I'm not going to re-explain what a database is. That's not going to happen in this course. However, I'm going to refer to things like the cursor. What's the cursor in a database? Just saying. Huh? No, not the white line. There is something called the cursor in the database. What's the cursor in the database? Look it up. Come on, you guys have the biggest, most powerful library in the world right in front of you, right? What's the cursor, the database cursor? What is it? What does it mean? I'm going to refer to this sometimes, and I don't want you to be like, what the hell is he talking about, right? There's actually an explanation for this. Yes?
It's a control structure that enables traversal over the records in a database.
Lovely. Thank you, Wikipedia, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
It means it's a pointer. It's a pointer to where I am when I'm reading the database or writing to the database. So example, when I'm on the first record of the database, where's my cursor? On the first record. It's a pointer, actually, is the better way to say it. A pointer to where I'm looking at my database. That's what the cursor is. I want you to think about in your mind when I say cursor, right? You're going to hear it in other places if you do any kind of other database work, right? Cursor. So you need to know what that is. All right. But I got a problem. I always have a problem, right? I need you to help me solve my problems, right? Because I'm the professor and I don't know how to solve my problems. I want to launch WAMP server, right? Here's WAMP server because we're going to work locally for today again. So here I'm launching WAMP server. It's asked me to kind of do it. And then it's going to launch WAMP server, and it's down here, and it's green, right? And okay, if I click onto it, left click, I can see that I can do something like PHP myadmin, right? I want to go to PHP myadmin. Now, again, here's some assumptions. At this week, third week, you have WAMP server working. You have Git working on your command line somehow, right? You've installed Node. You've done all those things that we did first weeks and second week. Those things are done. If you don't have WAMP server by this week, by week 3, I really recommend taking a look at video number 1, the videos from week 1, and some videos from week 2 because we need to get you guys going online. I can't reteach those things because I've got no time. So I'm just referring to me using WAMP server, okay? I'm going to go to phpMyAdmin. It's just when I left click on WAMP server here inside this little doc here, if I go to WAMP server and go to phpMyAdmin, it's going to go there. The other way to do it is localhost, just type localhost phpMyAdmin, and it's going to bring up this screen. I asked you last week to create your own username and password for the database server, and you should have done that. But if you forgot, the password, the default username is root in the local, kind of namespace, and the password is empty. And if you press OK, you'll just get into your stuff here, right? But you should create a user account. And what I've done is I've created a user account. Here's my user account. I've created Thomas. Here's Thomas. I also created John, and the password is 12345, right? Let's make a backup of Tom and John. We'll use a girl's name. How about Dasha, right? What do you think? With a D? You have to help me spell it, Dasha, right? Because you're gonna have access to my server now, right? Let's do it. So I'm gonna go to my user account. I'm gonna create a new user account. So add a user account. All right. The username. How do I spell it? D-A-S. Oh, so it's not the way it sounds, I guess. There's no special way of spelling it. Okay, that's good. Nice and easy. So Dasha is the username. Nice. I love the username Dasha. It's great. And here's my password. My password for your username is going to be 12345 again. Okay, just to make it easy. 12345, and retype 12345. You can make your own if you haven't done this already. You can also generate your own password. Don't recommend for now for testing, right? Under here, if you scroll down, there is an area that says global privileges. Please check all. So that way this user can get in there, right? Okay, and notice there's SSL, blah, blah, blah. We're going to check on, leave this the way it is, and click go. If I did everything correctly on the top here, it actually creates user Dasha, right? That's what it does. Identified with my SQL native password as, and it hides it, 12345, right? Grant all privileges. This here, what we're doing up here when we do this is a query, right? We're querying the database is what it's called. It's actually, we're executing a command, a query. And when we do that, by the way, any command is called a query in a database, right? And when we do a query, we're making it do something. All right, that's good, good, good. Here's our databases. I have no database of my own. What kind of database do you guys want me to create? I can make a game database. I can make a music database. I can make a book database. What do you want to make? Book. Anyone want to make a game database?
Yeah.
Game. Someone likes games. I know, but it's like saying, do you want gold or do you want rocks? Right? It's like, which one do you want? Right? There's no choice there. So I want to make the database name first. So in my databases, again, I've clicked the tab here. You guys should all have the same tab as me, databases. And if I go to my database name here, I'm going to call this, as movies was another option. I'm going to call this the game DB, all right, game database, right? And notice where it says collation type. I can choose different types. I'm going to leave it as the default and click create. Yay, I created my first database. And notice on the left-hand side, it should appear as GameDB. In fact, it appears in lowercase GameDB, even if I put uppercase. Why does it do this? Because that's the way it functions. You cannot create tables in MySQL or MySQL or databases with uppercase names that would stick, all right? Well, not really. Okay, number of columns in my database, in my table. I have to make a table. My database is a container now that's empty. It has nothing inside of it, right? I got to make my game DB, right? So what would be my table? How do I create tables? In my mind, I'm thinking, I got to make a table that sounds nice. It makes sense, right? It's going to be related to the type of objects that I want. For example, games. That would be the type of object. Then maybe that's the games table, right? I know it's my game DB and the games table. You can do that, right? There's other things I can do. Players might be another database table. I can have players and I can have games, right? Let's keep it simple. Games, right? And if I'm going to try and type capital S again. Okay. How many number of columns do I know that I want to create my table? Do I know? Columns means fields, right? In my database table, I know I need an ID, game ID. I know I need a game name. I know I need a game description. That's 3 things. Do I need anything else? Can you think of it? Huh? The year, that's 4 things. Publisher, 5th thing. What else? Huh? A rating, 6 things, right? Price, 7 things. Date of release, we said published date, whatever it is. Genre, right? 8 things. Anything else? I'm saying this is how I would plot. Now normally we'd plot it out, right? I wouldn't just make it like this. I would sit there and make some kind of Excel spreadsheet and start writing all the fields out. Why do I want to do that? Why do I want to write as much out as I possibly can? So-called ERD. Why would I want to do something like that, right? Because if I have to recreate my data, if I put my data in there and recreate my table again, I'm messed up, right? I have to wipe the data, or something's not going to connect properly, or whatever. I want to create my structure the way I want it as early as possible in my database. And it has to be matched what my requirements are. So this is nice what we're doing. We're just throwing out names, but that's not really accurate. And what we should do probably is set up some kind of mock requirements that I want to put on my table. And that's, I mean, I know it's kind of a long way of doing it, guys, but to me, I can't create a table without some kind of Excel spreadsheet or something like that at the very minimum, right? So I'm going to kind of pull this up. I'm going to make the background white for us. And we're going to do this before we create any kind of table, right? So an example of this would be the sheet name itself in my Excel is going to be called games, right? This is my table. And notice that I made the background completely white. I'm also going to make it really big for you guys to see it, 20 point, right? And I'm going to start off with the top is going to be my columns. So I'm going to say something like ID, right? Here's my ID. That's for the table ID itself, yeah? And then we said the name, and there's going to be description. And then we said other things like, what else did we say? Publisher. Well, we can put them in a different order anyway. Publisher, genre. We also said costs, date of release, release date, right? A rating. Don't worry about the skipping over. I'll fix that in a second. Right? What else?
Version.
The version. You say virgin? Version?
Oh, you put system.
System? Okay, so that's platform, right?
Platform, yeah.
Right. What else? What else? So we got genre, platform, lots of stuff for the thing. Release date. Should this be in any order? Do we care? Do we care in database what order this is? The table. We should, right? Even though it's not really important, we don't care really. I mean, as long as it's a property, it's okay. Should we put it in alphabetical order? Is that important? Right? Do we care? But we should probably put it in some kind of order, right? Name, description. Now, this description, is it the full description of the game, or is it a short description of the game? And could there be a long description of the game, right? That could be there too, right? Like kind of a longer description or short description. For now, we're just gonna leave it as a description, right? Could I have an image, some kind of image? Hey, question, do I want to store images on my database? Is that a good practice? What should I store on my database? Image URL, right? That's what I should store. So that's what I need, that for sure. So if I don't have an image URL, I'll put that at the end. All right, so I'll call it image URL. We would have missed that if we just kind of created stuff right off the cuff. See? So a name, my description. Let's put some make it look like a table. We can move these around when you want me to, right? So we're starting to kind of put together some requirements for my game table. And usually this comes out of requirements that the customer is going to give you, because then they're going to create something online. We want to access this data, right? That's what we're going to do. So name, description, publisher, genre, right? Does that make any sense? Should I put publisher and release date together? I think so. Just for organizational perspective, from that perspective, right?
I guess you could still add developer. I'd say that's more.
Is that different than the publisher?
Yeah.
Is that something wrong?
It can be all.
Cut and insert, right? Okay, so it could be 2 different people, right? The publisher and the developer, right? Give me an example of that. Give me an example of the publisher and developer being different on a game.
Naughty Dog is published by Sony.
Sony would be the publisher, Naughty Dog is a developer, right? All right, I like it. That's a good thing. So we'll insert a cell and we'll put in this, we'll say the developer and then the publisher afterwards. So developer. Now we're going into a lot of detail, and this is a lot of data that we're going to store in one record. Each record is going to be like a line, a row in our database, right? Again, this is like database 101, right? For us to know this kind of stuff, right? Our ID is going to be auto incrementing, right? We want to make our ID auto increment, right? Okay. We could also include another ID if we really wanted to, right? If I really wanted to, I could include another ID or call this game ID instead of like, ID by itself, right? I could do that. But I think we have enough. We have how many fields right now? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fields. I think it's good enough, right? This room has great acoustics, by the way. You might think you're whispering, but I can hear you very nicely, right? So you might be able to, I might have to scream for you to hear me, but for me, I can hear everything, right? Every little whisper I can hear, every little shuffle, every little phone call, I can hear it all, right? I just try and avoid it. I try to ignore it all, right? So just bear with me while I do. So if I look at you, it's not because like I want you to stop or whatever. I'll let you govern what you do, right? But I can hear you, right? And if I can hear you, chances are this can hear you, right? All right, let's go to the next piece. So now that I've done that, if I go over to this, I want to kind of do that. I need 11 fields. That's what I'm thinking, right? And this is like a very high-level plan of what my table is going to look like. Okay, so here's my 11 fields. All right, my first field is ID, right? So that's my field. What type should it be? Well, here's the types: varchar, text, numeric, tiny int, small int, int. It's 4-byte integer. It's pretty darn big, right? Am I going to have 2,147,000 games, right? Maybe. I might. If I don't think I will, I can probably use tiny int up to 255 games. That might be something we want to use. But you can see that there's different options. For now, let's leave it as int, right? Length and values, default. It tells me if I want to make it a default, as defined. Attributes, here's something. Unsigned, binary. How about null? Can it be null? Hell no. It's got to be there, right? And how about this? My index. Is it a primary key? I would say yes, right? So here's my primary key. I like that. I like it, right? How about this? Is it auto-incrementing? Yes. Check that one too. So it's primary, and it's auto-incrementing. This is my primary key, yeah? That's my ID. That's how I did it. So again, what I checked was primary and auto-incremented. A_I is auto-incrementing, right? If you don't do that, then it won't work properly, right? Okay, next. Now that I have my ID, I need my other values, and I'm just going to try and copy and paste them, if I can, from my PowerPoint, or my Excel spreadsheet. So my name, my description, my genre, I'll type them. Name, description, genre. Not a big deal. So name, right? Description, genre. I'm going to change the type in a second. I'm going to change them all because they're probably all going to be the same. Oops. Genre. I made a boo-boo there. Oops. And then it's cost, developer, publisher. Costs, developer, publisher. Okay, and then it's release date, rating, platform, and image URL. I love it. Like lots of detail. Release date, right? Rating. What else do I have? Platform. Okay, that's okay. Maybe we probably put it somewhere else, platform, but that's all right. And image URL. Image URL. Okay, so those ones. Now these all, my recommendation, they should be what? Yes.
I was just gonna ask a question. When it comes to like writing the names, keys, the columns, is there any like standard that you use? Like, should you do it all under, like, if someone does all under lowercase versus doing the camel case?
Like YID, but everything else thing. So the reality is this: if you're connecting to Microsoft anything, right? The standard is, the best practice on the Microsoft side is upper camel case, which means every word is capitalized, upper camel case. You may also decide to use camel case, where the first letter of the first word is lowercase and the other words are uppercase, right? You could also do underscore. So you could do like each word is underscore. Don't recommend that myself, not for a database, right? but you could. All right, as long as you stick to it, whatever you decide to make, and stay with that standard the whole way, that's okay, right?
There's no, like, generally.
It really depends, but typically, I think most developers like some kind of camel case that separates one word from the other. If I create a model to connect to my database, my model is got to look exactly, it's a class, it's got to look exactly like my database structure, right? And a lot of times I want to make it upper camel case. That's just me. So that's why I made my stuff upper camel case. You don't have to. You can make a lowercase if you want. I'm not going to judge you. There's no judgment here on your names, okay? The only thing I'd ask you not to do is something like this. Desk for description, you know? Gen for genre, right? Or, you know, costs for costs. That doesn't make any sense, right? Unless everything must be only 3 characters or 4 characters, and everything is 4 characters, and all capitalized or something like that. Maybe there's some kind of structure you're trying to, you know, match up with an older database. I don't recommend it. I think you should type out the whole thing. There's enough room for us to make large names, descriptive names of our data items. All right, question. What type should I make all of these? And should they be all, can they be null? Can I have any nulls in here?
No.
Let's think. So name, can that be null?
No.
Should it be varchar, right?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm thinking that's probably the safest thing to do. Okay, length. How big should it be? Should I specify? At least 50 characters, right? Could be the big name, right? 50 is a good value. Do I want a default value? No, right? Can it be null? I don't think the name can be null, so I'm gonna have to say no, right? Is it primary? No, right? And the rest is okay. So I think this is the thing for name. Description, varchar, right? I think it's good. How about the length? Man, description's gonna be big, right? Maybe 2,000 characters? I don't know. Let's say 2048, that's pretty big, right? There's issues here. I'm gonna put it out there. Can it be null? I think we can. I think we should leave the ability for us to make it so we can add a description later, right? So let's make it nullable, right? Genre, should that be null? Maybe we can if we really want to. Except if we don't get the description. For now, why don't we do this? Why don't we say that, you know what? The genre can be 50 characters. It can be null as well. The cost is varchar, right? Oh, is the cost varchar or is the cost something else? What should it be? Double? I like decimal a lot. Why is decimal better than double in this case, right? Yeah, well, it's more used for calculations for more accurate. First of all, it's much bigger than a double, right? Typically, if I look at decimal, you can see that it's a fixed point number. The maximum number of digits is 65 million, right? Or 65 digits. Sorry, 65 digits wide. The default is 10. The maximum number of decimals is 30, right? That's pretty darn big, right? So it's pretty large. You can make it some big digits, right? I like decimal. How many digits do I want? How many significant digits do I want in my decimal? Like for games, $65. Is it like maybe $100? Let's say, well, 3, plus significant digits, right? Because it's going to include all that, right? 5 total digits. 6, let's say 10. Would 10 do it? Is 10 okay? Okay. 10. All right. Is it nullable? I think not. Yes.
At like an enterprise level, is decimal standard for cost as well? No?
Depends. It depends. Cost because decimal is more accurate. That's why we use decimal.
Right.
You can use double and float too, or something like that. Depending on the database, it's going to be called something else. Like if on the SQL Server side, it may not be called this, but this is very large. We're going to have issues with making decimals are massive, right? Very accurate.
Professionally, you use
Decimal.
for money.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Developer. All right. Developer will make that varchar. We'll make it 50 characters. Again, I don't think the developer can be that much larger than that. We'll make it nullable, so maybe we don't have to put it in at the beginning. Publisher, the same thing, because publisher and developer, we can leave that blank for the beginning. We can add to it later, and we want to do that just for testing too, right? Release date. That's pretty, again, same thing, varchar. And, you know, we'll make it 50. Oh, is it varchar? Right? Yeah, right. Oh, we got to be careful here. We got to be careful. What's the length in values? Should I put a length there? Right? I'm going to say leave it blank. Right? And is it nullable? I would say for now, yes. Right? We can put the date later for more information. Rating. Rating. That's a varchar. Is it a varchar? What would you put as a rating?
We talking about rating. We're talking about like, they just have.
What kind of rating can we do? Can we do star ratings? We can do star ratings, yeah? Like 1 star, 2 star, 3 stars?
Rating or like whether it's safe for children?
Oh, that's a different thing. That's whether it's rated for mature or not, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? I think a rating, like how good it is. How about that? Like from a 1 to 10, you know, that kind of thing. A rating is it 8? Maybe it could be like 2 digits. Maybe it could be a decimal, right? Like 8.9, right? Whatever. So if that's true, is it decimal or can we use something smaller than that, like a float? Float is single precision, right? So we'll say float. There's also real. What's the difference between decimal and real? Real number is a synonym for double. That's what it says. But I think float is the way to go. Okay, float. And we want to put in, I don't know, I mean, let's say, I'm not going to put too many digits. Let's say 4 digits, right? So, I mean, if you really want to be crazy accurate, right? And can I be nullable? Yeah, I think we can make that nullable. Platform can be nullable. It's definitely 50 characters. There's people, Xbox, you know, PlayStation, you know, Switch, whatever. That could be there. And definitely image URL. Now this we have to think about carefully. I would recommend making this much larger, like something like 250, right? Why would I make my image URL really large? Anybody? Because if we make our image URL large, it could be something like C:\\, you know, blah, 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 like a big, you know, like, or even if it's relative URL, /assets, /images, you know, icons, / blah, blah. By the time you type all that out, it's going to be, might be, especially if it's a large image or whatever, it's pretty big. I'm giving me room. That's why I'm making this image URL so big. So that way I have enough room to fill it up. Okay. Wow. Lots of work on this database table so far. We haven't done anything, right? No PHP. Let's click save. And now we have our database table, right? Okay, I want to enter some mock data, right? Mock data. Is there a way of entering mock data into my table, right? So if I go back to browse, right? Here's my table, right? I create a view. That's something different. I can edit inline, edit, explain, create PHP code. I could do that. There's a bunch of stuff I can do here. There's structure. So if I go back out to here, my game.db, here's my table, my games table, right? Here's, look what I can do. I can insert, right? Right here. So I click GameDB on the left side here, and then I went here to my games. Notice that I have the one table, and I can click insert. If I click insert, guess what I can do? I can enter some data in a really ugly format, right? This is pretty ugly. So I'm not going to enter my integer, that's for sure, but my name, I want to enter some information for my name. What is the first game you want to enter? Anybody have an idea? I'll enter a couple of them with you. And we don't have a lot to enter because there's some nullable types. We can leave them as such. Let's enter like 3, okay? Counter-Strike, all right? Counter-Strike, 1 word, 2 words. Look it up, huh? Counter-Strike, like this, right? All right, description, we don't care about right now. Costs, what's the cost of Counter-Strike right now on Steam? And which version of, which Counter-Strike are we talking about? Is it Counter-Strike CS, is it CSGO?
Oh, it's CSGO, it's like $15.99. More of a source player.
All right, so what is it? Counter-Strike
Oh,
1.6? That's the version, but we can say, we know what it is, 1.6. And then what's the cost of it? I'm not going to put dollars. I'm just going to put the number, okay? We don't put dollar. The dollar sign we do not put up online, okay? Just letting you know. $21.99. Okay, fine. I leave developer out for now, and the rating and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything else that we need for this, for my game? I just do Counter-Strike and the cost. That's all I have. Everything else is nullable. So let's leave that out. We're going to go back and fix it later, okay? Let's add another one. So we got Counter-Strike. What's another game? Let's add 3. Overwatch. Okay, I like Overwatch. Overwatch W or Overwatch 1 word like this. How do you spell it? Is it like this? Right? 1 word. And we don't care what the publisher. What's the cost right now? And depending on the platform, right? Is it 40? Huh? Depends on the version, right? Well, give me the version you want. Be more specific, right? What version is it? What's the cost? Give me actual values. Since you're the man right now for games. Come on.
All right. It's a $60 $59.99 US.
59 US. Okay, let's assume that it's the same in Canada, right? So $59.99. All right. Overwatch. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so now insert a new row. I can do whatever. I can press go. If I press those two, I entered two values, right? I enter two values, and if I browse, I see the values, right? So again, I go back to GameDB. This is a little bit of training on PHP MySQL, right? PHP MyAdmin. I go to browse. I can see the data. There's the data right here. Counter-Strike and Overwatch, right? And if I go back to games, right? I can go insert again and insert something else. I can insert another one more game, and then we'll be done. Just to make it more simple. How about something else? We got Overwatch, we got Counter-Strike, kind of both competitive games. Can we not put in some kind of first-person shooter just to satisfy me? All right? Huh? No, a real first-person with a story. Come on. Halo. All right, what version? Halo 3. Okay, Halo 3. I like it. What's the cost of Halo 3 at this point in time? Can you get it? You can get it in a bundle, right? You can get the Master Chief Edition, right? Which gives you 1, 2, and 3. Huh? $14.99. Worth it. Halo 3 for $14.99, guys. It's awesome. It's a great game, right? Can't go wrong with that one. Only available on Xbox, though, yeah? All right, so that's pretty cool. We're going to press go down here. Notice I don't have to go down here and enter this one. I can just press go on this one, and that would enter the data, right? So now I have 3 pieces of data. If I click browse, I have 1, 2, 3. Notice that the ID incremented automatically like we wanted. We have a bunch of nulls, which we're going to take care of during the class. Yes?
I get some errors if you type it.
Is it maybe because the point, like for the cost, did you put point anything?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I used decimal, and I don't have no errors. Did you put any nullables? I put all these nullables. These are all nullables for me, right?
I put mine down.
Yeah. All right. Try it again. Try and fix your problem. Right. It's not going to solve. It's not going to kill anything. You probably didn't put anything in. If it gives you a problem, it means didn't put anything in there.
It work, like they're added and everything.
Okay.
Just tell me next.
Leave it alone for now. All right. Fix that. Okay. So I got my stuff. I got three things here. Now we've got a database, and we have a table. Without a database and without a table, what are we going to do? We can't access any data, right? Okay, so today's class is 2 things. 1, PHP MyAdmin. How do I use it? We kind of saw that. Next piece is how do I connect to it with PHP? I need to do that, right? Now, the PowerPoint that I put up online, it's the first part. We have a way of connecting and selecting and reading, right? Next week, we'll do, if we can, update and deleting, right? And well, we'll do kind of creating, update, and deleting next week as well. Right, kind of, or maybe in a couple weeks we'll do both. So, but before the exam, you'll have the full CRUD structure: create, read, update, delete. Okay. When you have that with PHP, you have the building blocks of any application that you want to build. Because once you have data access, you can do anything. Web without data is static pages, right? Think of it that way. And PHP is going to enable us not to have static pages and create something more interesting. Okay, let's get back. So now that I've done this, I have my Visual Studio Code here. I've got this really weird index.html, which we're going to modify to death, right? With some bootstrap and so on. It looks like I'm missing some stuff, right? And this is an older version of my code that does not include my bootstrap library, and it doesn't include Font Awesome, right? Let's include everything in here to make before we break, let's include something that covers everything I need, all right? So again, I'm going to right-click and open up in Command Prompt for a second, which is this nice Command Prompt now. And what I want to do is I want to do Bower. Now, if you don't have Bower, if you can't do Bower -V, that means you haven't finished your installation. So please go back to week number 1 and download or use npm install Bower -G, and that'll install things globally, right? So I'm going to use Bower to get a bunch of stuff, right? Because now all I have right now in my index.html is some scripts file, right, with some kind of style sheets. And I'm going to put this up on GitHub in a second, right, to connect to it if I haven't done it already. So I have all these things I want to modify, and I need to add all these different libraries. So I'm going to go Bower, install, and I'm going to do it all in one line because I've shown you Bower in a couple of lines. I want to install jQuery at 2.4. I want to install Bootstrap CSS framework, right? I want to install font-awesome. That's new, right? Those are the things I want. And I want to save all these things somehow in my Bower config. But I don't have a Bower config. I got a problem. So I can't do that. If I did this, it would install it, but it wouldn't keep track, right? So don't do this yet. I'm just being honest, right? I want to do all that stuff. And that's the line that I would type in, okay? But I want to do this. I want to right-click and go a new file. Remember we did this last time. I want to make a .bower.rc file. Bower.rc is a control file or a configuration file. Inside Bower.rc, what we want to put in is, if I press Control Space, I want to target the directory that I want to use. I want to use this directory called scripts lib. So all my Bower stuff, everything that I grab and download from the web, is going to go inside the scripts lib folder. Again, this is review for some of you. People that are new. Anyone new this week? That wasn't, you know, from people that didn't show up from the first 2 weeks for whatever reason. There's different reasons, right? If you're new, please see videos 1 and or weeks 1 and 2 because lots of information there. All right, we need this. We need this Bower config. I also want to run locally. I also want to run this Bower, a Bower init, right? Because what Bower init does is it runs. Oops, there, I made a mistake. What Bower init does is it runs a little wizard, right? And the little wizard, oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, an interactive shell. That's awesome. So that's a problem. Okay, Bower init and then --config .interactive. Sure, I don't know why the shell is not interactive, but we'll make it so. Right? And it doesn't work. Okay. It's my fault because I've built in this. I'm using this git bash. Again, for you guys who don't know how to do Bower, I'll install it for the second time or third time. npm install Bower, right? -G. That does it globally. I want to see if this fixes it. Probably not, because git shell might be different than the global shell. And if not, I'll just use regular command prompt. That's what the problem is. It's taking its sweet time, is what's happening, right? And this is what I was worried about. Because it should never take this long for an install through npm, right? Which kind of throws my idea that this is a nice. I'm gonna go back to COMP1006 again, right? Because it's better. Maybe it's a better or PowerShell. All right, so this is not working. I'm gonna kind of escape out of here, and I'm gonna use this regular command prompt for now, right? That sucks. I didn't anticipate that one. Sometimes it catches you, you know. It kind of grabs you by the poo-poo is what I kind of say, right? It kind of grabs you when and I'm gonna put it out there like this, right? And the reason why I say that is because it kind of surprises you, is what I'm saying, right? You're a programmer or a developer for a long time. You try something you think is going to work, and then, especially at home, it works at home. But here, you're live. It's the travails of being live and making mistakes, right? Which is fun. All right. So what I want to do is I want to point to that folder, which is kind of right over here. So I need to point to it. So cd space and then point to that folder. And then what I want to do is hopefully now Bower will work in a regular command prompt. So if I go Bower init, right, init, that's good. And so I'll accept that. My description will be a PHP with MySQL, right? Main file I don't care about, keywords, PHP, and MySQL. Right, and that's me, and MIT license, and here's my GitHub link, and I'm accepting all my dependencies. I'm just pressing enter, 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 and enter again. What this does is it creates a manifest for Bower, right? I just ran this little wizard, and I kind of entered these things in here. So all I did is change the description to PHP with MySQL. All right, this is good. So if you look at my Bower.json, it's the exact same thing. It generates Bower.json. Now I should be able to go into my command prompt, this one. It should, and I should be able to do a Bower install because it's not an interactive shell anymore. So if I go Bower install, like I did before, jQuery at 2.2.4, and then I space bootstrap, make sure you spell it properly, boot. I just said spelled properly. I didn't spell properly. And then font dash awesome. And then minus minus save, which is going to save it inside the bower.json file, right? And if I press enter and if bower works, then it should get something like this. That's what I was expecting. Yay. So I'll show you that. I'll make it wider, which is cool, so you can see it better. All right, so I did these commands. This command right here. This is the command, which is bower install la la la. Sorry, made it wider so you can see it all. Okay. Okay, so what this does when you use multiple commands on the same line with bower, it installs everything all together at once, right? So it's almost like putting commas. Spaces for bower, when you're using bower, the package manager here, it installs things. Now we're using two package managers. We're using bower and npm, two different package managers. npm for components for Node. If I want to extend Node for whatever reason, make my server, local server better, I can do that. I'm not going to use Node that much in this course, right? And then bower for any kind of front-end dependencies that I want to use. For example, if I want to install things like jQuery and Bootstrap and all kinds of other libraries, bower. Okay, where does it put them? It put them in here. It put them in scripts lib. So notice I have 3 more libraries, Bootstrap, Font Awesome, and jQuery. And now I'm going to connect them up into my index.html, right? Okay, so if you don't have this, don't worry. I'm going to put it up on, I'm going to kind of share this on GitHub in a second, and then you can download my version, right? But what I want is, before my app.css, I want to put in my Bootstrap stuff, right? And where can I find my Bootstrap stuff? Well, I can go into scripts, lib, Bootstrap, dist for distribution, CSS, and then I can look at bootstrap.min.css. I'm going to right-click here and copy the path, right? So that's all I've done is gone and kind of swum down into my directory structure. And then I'm going to put a link tag, right? And inside here, I'm going to kind of paste this. But I'm going to remove everything before the scripts, because anything before the scripts, right, as an example. And here's a problem. Should it be backslash like this or / like this? And does it matter? / is the right way. I should do this because this is universal this way. The other way may or may not work on certain systems, just putting it out there to you. All right. So I've done the quick and dirty way of doing this by going to scripts, lib, and blah, 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 right? And copy and pasting. But now that I have one line, I can do the others. I can kind of do, go in here and copy it and paste it down here. This one, instead of bootstrap.min, bootstrap-theme.min.css. I can't do the same for the other one, but I can do it by hand. And typing it by hand is not bad, but it means like this. I'd have to go, okay, so here's my scripts. Here's my lib. So this part's the same, scripts, lib. And instead of Bootstrap, I want to do Font Awesome now. So I want to go to Font-Awesome. So open that up. And under Font Awesome, I want to go CSS. So that's where it lives. So it's Font-Awesome. This is just pathing, guys. You guys should know how to do this, right? And then CSS, and then Font-Awesome.css. Oops, keep doing that. It's pressing Command. I'm using Command S instead of Control S. All right, so that's your path. So there's 2. So I've done Bootstrap, and then the Bootstrap theme, and then the Font Awesome for my special fonts, and then my app.css. Okay. On the bottom down here, right? Before my scripts, my app.js, I want to include, of course, my other stuff, which is my under jQuery. I want to include jQuery first under dist, and then jQuery.min.css. So the link would be script with a source of, I'm going to do it one time, with a source of, again, it'd be scripts, lib, dist, jQuery, dist, and then jQuery.min.js. Right? Because it's like this, scripts, lib, jQuery, dist, jQuery.min.css. Everyone see that? Again, just path it, right? The next one is Bootstrap, right? So I need that one too. So I'll copy the script again with a source that's equal to scripts lib. That's in the beginning for sure, scripts lib. And then from there, it's going to be Bootstrap. Now, if I go back to see what it looks like, Bootstrap, and then from there, dist instead of CSS is going to be JS. So it's going to be Bootstrap, dist, JS, and then bootstrap.min.js. Test these out to see if they work. If you kind of look on here, if you hover over, it tells you control-click to follow link to see if it works. If I click control-click, so control-click, it actually allows me to peek or go to the file with control-click, right, to follow. So that's one thing. Now, for me, it's a little different because I have a Mac and I'm emulating Windows. Try control-click for yourself and see if it works. But basically, when you click on this, it should take you to the file. If it doesn't take you to the file, it says and you can't find the file, something's wrong. It means your path is wrong. It's incorrect. All right, great. Well, we've loaded in Bootstrap and we've loaded in everything else. But you know what? We need a little, in our div tag, I definitely want to add in a class of container because that's a Bootstrap class. Well, and you know what? I want to make sure that my h1 tag, which is going to say something like, PHP with my SQL is there. And in my hello world, instead of my title, I'll change my hello world to COMP1006, right? That's what it'll be, right? So PHP MySQL. With some lorem ipsum text, this is fine. But I want to put my div tag for my container. I want to put another container. I'm trying to use Bootstrap to show you that it works, right? So I want to create another thing. I want to put a div tag, and inside the div with a container that's row, class of row, and inside my div with a class of row, I want to include a div with column dash medium dash offset 3, and then column dash medium dash 6. Okay. I want to take this stuff. I'll explain that in a second. Copy, I know. You're like, what the hell? Put it in there. This is all Bootstrap stuff. I'll talk about it. And what I'm doing is I've layered in a couple things. So in Bootstrap, container means how much margin do I have on each side? And by default, there's a bit of margin, almost like a thumb's worth of margin on the left and right, maybe more, right? When you look at it. Row, for each row, I'm going to use a 12-column grid scenario for Bootstrap. And what I've done is saying for this row, right, that includes my h1 tag and my paragraph tag, right, my paragraph element, I'm going to include 3 columns out of the 12 with an offset, which means I'm going to push everything to the right, 3 columns, and then I'm going to give the middle part, my h1 element and my paragraph element, 6 columns to live inside of, right? And then the other 3 columns are going to be on the right. I don't care about those, all right? So if this works well, then just to test it locally, right? This thing here. By the way, I know what happened to the money. No, I know what happened to lesson 3. It's inside the www folder of my WAMP server. Yeah, that's what happened, right? Got lost. Let's put this thing there. But before we do that, we have all these things to upload to GitHub. I think it's a great place to go into my GitHub integration and go to changes and click plus. That's like saying git add dot. And over here, my GitHub integration, if everything is working well, I can do something like my commit message, which is added Bootstrap and font awesome libraries. That's what I really did. Right, and jQuery too, but it's required to have the other ones. Clicking the check mark there, that's kind of like making a local commit. And now if I click the ellipses, I should be able to push. And that'll push everything out to GitHub. So you can do it in here too. There's an integrated Git with Visual Studio. To check this, I'm going to go to my Georgian College stuff, right, and take a look at my code. And you can see that there's 2 commits, right? One for my initial commit and one for this commit that I just made. So if you have a problem where if I did something different and you couldn't keep up, please look at github.com/Georgian College. and look for COMP1006 lesson 3. Okay? Great. So I've got that done. And I want to test it locally. I want to test it in my little server, my WAMP server. And there's a couple ways I talked about it doing it last time. I'm just closing some of these windows off. One way was going into my folder. This is the way you can do it. You can go to C:// and if you look at WAMP, right? So this was done WAMP 64. This is what I've got in. If you look at the www folder, there's my lesson 2 that was hiding. I was like, where's the damn lesson 2? It's here. That's where it went, right? I could do it this way, but we had a problem when I launched this. It kind of looks at going into that lesson by default. The other way to do it is, and I'm putting it out there to you, what if I included, I've got my, my virtual directories here. Here's my virtual hosts. And on the Apache side, I also have something else called alias directories, right? Alias directories kind of point to my COMP1006 being in a certain spot. I want to edit my alias directory here, and you can create one if you follow the instructions. So my alias directory right now goes to this path, which is incorrect, desktop COMP1006. I don't want it to go here. I want it to point to, I think it's just this, COMP1006. And to check that, check this if this is the path, let's take a look. I can see that I have a COMP1006 folder on the desktop, and if I kind of open it up, you can see that that's the path, C:/users Tom desktop COMP1006, right? And so that's what I'm putting in here with an extra / at the end, right? That'll be my alias, right? So I'm going to kind of get rid of all this, and an extra / at the end. And now notice that it's // not backslashes, right? Just like it was with the other stuff. These are my options. You might see my options different than yours. I've made it so that you can access this folder from anywhere. And I've done that by allow override all, and I require all granted. I've changed my alias. So I can get access to this even from my Mac if I want, on the Mac side, right? So I can run a server on one virtual machine and access it from somewhere else, okay? All right, so this is one part. Now that I've done this, am I ready to look at my COMP1006? And the answer is no. And the reason why I can't do it is because I need to restart my server, right? When I made a change to the server configuration just now, I made it point my alias folder to this folder right here, right? And that means I made a change, so I'm going to restart my server. So I'm going to go here and go restart all services, right? And if everything works well, then this should turn from red to orange and back to green, and I'm ready to go, right? This should be green now. All right, cool. Now if I go here, right, and if I go to localhost, right, there's localhost, and if I go to my, on the bottom, you can see that I have COMP1006 right here. If I click on this, should be able to see all my folders right now for my lessons. And if I go into my lesson, it should serve it up. Okay. Now there's a problem. I can tell you right away there's a problem. 100%. What do you see as the problem here? You don't know. Bootstrap's not working, right? Let's take a look why. So if I go to inspect, and if I go to console, you can see there's all these errors, right? Local scripts, Bootstrap. I'm trying to find local scripts /lib/bootstrap, and it's not finding them. Why is that? Bootstrap.min.css is like empty, right? My pathing is the culprit, right? So how do I fix this to make it work for sure? Where my index.html sits, it's dot, right? Remember the dot idea? You have to put all these dots in there, right, for content and app and everything else. And if you don't put the dot in front of it, again, universally, this may not work like I'm showing here. So if I save my index.html and I go back to this and I refresh, then now it's beautiful. So pathing is an issue now. Bootstrap is working, and Bootstrap gives us a responsive front end, right? That gives us more modern look and feel for our PHP application. Is my application PHP? No, it's an index.html file right now. And this is where the errors come into play, so please forgive me, right? Remember, it's just an editor. If I rename this file from index.html, right, to index.php, I'm probably going to get an error, and that's okay, on my Visual Studio that comes up. Just ignore it. But it does syntax highlighting still for this and HTML, which we're okay. Okay, now if I refresh my screen, if I go here and refresh, you can see that there's no change. Okay, but I'm still looking at COMP1006, COMP1006-W2017 lesson 3, and we're going to do that from now on. I'm putting it all in that folder, and I recommend you do too, to make it easier for you to test. Okay. All right. Nice work. We're almost ready to take a short break because we can't take a lot of breaks today because we got a lot of stuff to cover, right? I have a database and I want to connect to it, but I need the code to do it. And there's some examples that I've given you. I'm going to kind of kill this. I don't need this anymore. In our little example anyway. And if I go to my lesson plan, and now your PowerPoints are all up online on Blackboard. So if I go to your PowerPoint for today's lesson, now I just put it in PDF format so you can all read it properly. You can see what the stuff I'm going to talk about. Still using the same book, hasn't changed. So we're going to create something called a PHP data object. That's what it's called. We're using the PDO way of connecting to MySQL. That's the newer way. PDO is available with PHP 5.1 and above. Anything before PHP 5.1, PDO won't work. Now, PHP 5.1 has been around for a long time. It's been around for years and years, right? Remember, PHP is like the grandfather of all backends, right? And it has 8 out of 10 back-end database servers, if you will, PHP. All right, so how do you connect to it? What we need to do is we create something called a DSN. We need a DSN. The DSN is this connection string, if you will. That's what it is, right? So the DSN is going to be like this. MySQL is the type of connection. We can use a different DSN, a different connector, if I was connecting to SQL server, right? SQL server. Or if I was connecting to Postgres, or if I was connecting to something else, it would be a different thing in the front. So the front tells me what kind of database I'm connecting to. In this case, MySQL. Next, the host. Where is it? Localhost. That's where it is, right? The default port is 3306. We don't need to know that. The DB name. What's my DB name? GamesDB. That's my DB name, right? So I need this piece. So please do this. So I'm going to take this piece here, copy it. I'm going to go to my site here. And where do I put this? At the top of my file for now. So up here, remember, because PHP is a embedded language, right? So we're going to do one of these, PHP. And at the bottom, do I need a bottom PHP or the other one? This one, do I need that? The answer is probably is a good idea. Do I need one? Unless I have no other code after, no other PHP code after this, maybe not. But I recommend you always close off your braces like this, right? And now I'm going to paste. So I've got DSN. Remember, when we declare a variable, we declare it with the $. It's required, right? And it can't be my guitar shop. That's no good, right? That's not, it doesn't work. I got to make it so that it points to GamesDB. That's my database name, right? Is this enough? Right? My host name is localhost. My DB name is host GamesDB. How about a username and password? I should probably be able to access it some other ways. Do I put it here? Where do I put that? Let's take a look. So again, my PDO, here's my DSN. I got to make it PDO first, but first I need a DSN, right? This PDO is a new, again, PHP data object. I can't have a new PHP data object without a DSN, which we defined, without a username, which we need, and without a password. Okay, so those are 3 things. I need to do those ones as well. Let's do that. So again, username. I'm going to use Dasha because we know that. We know everything's good, right? So username. Again, username, you can put it this way. Or if you notice what it says here, username's all lowercase. I like camel case for this. Username is equal to Dasha, right? And my password, right? So password. Now it's a clear text password. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can make whatever your password is going to be and whatever access you're going to have. That's the second thing. So I got my DSN, my username and password. And now I want to make a new connection to my database. Make a space here. So that's DB, my database, is equal to new PBO, right? Or PDO, I'll be okay. PDO, right? And my PDO, if you notice what this is the way we do it, right? my DSN, my username, and my password. It's my new class, right? So my DSN, my .username, and my password. Right? That declares the object that I have for my DB. And you know what I want to do? I want to echo my connection string. I want to see what it looks like. So I want to kind of do something like this. I want to go echo. Echo is the print all for PHP. I want to say .db. Can I do that? So whenever I stop my file, whenever I go there, I want to connect to the database. I haven't closed the connection. I just connect right now. Okay. Let's see how that works out. Does everyone understand what I've just done here? So I get 3 variables. I don't have to put var in front of them. Okay, it's not required in PHP. Variable declaration, $. Once we put a $sign in there, we can declare, we can set and get the value of a variable, and we can change the value anytime we want, which is something that I don't like about PHP because it's very unstructured. All right, let's test it. So here I am, and if I refresh, oh man, fatal error, SQL state, access denied for Dasha, a local host using my password, yes. All right, what's the problem? It says access denied for user Dasha. Did I do something wrong? Did I get access to this database somehow? Does she have access to the database? Oh man, let's go back to my PHP myadmin, right? Who owns my database? Let's go back to my GameDB, right? Is there an owner of the database? You know, can I access it with something else? Do I have the ability to kind of log in and log out? Can I get the hell out of Dodge? Like, what's going on here, right? How come it's not working? How about if I use my other, is it GamesDB? Here it is, GameDB. That's the one thing. So GamesDB was wrong, right? So that was incorrect, right? So these are things that we have to check. This is wrong, right? Where it says GamesDB, that's incorrect. It's GameDB. Save. Go back here, go back to here, and refresh. Still, Shino worky. Did you work over there? Right, I got a problem, right? I can't access GameDB. Access denied for user Dasha, it says. All right, how about accessing the database when I do things like change my username? So I want to I have a username. Remember, I have some other usernames here. So I'm going to go PHP myadmin, and I'm going to go to user accounts. Let me take a look at this. Root, no password required, right? Has access to localhost, right? Root. But I have % here, right? % here for Thomas, % here for Dasha. If I edit my privileges, right? That says Dasha %, right? Here's my database, right? Database access for my database is none. I could choose database access to this one specifically, but I want all of them, right? Change my password. I can change my login information. And notice it says this, right? What I really want to say is localhost. I change to localhost, right? And I go back out to here, and I click on user accounts, and I look at Dasha. Notice that now, just like the root user, she has localhost access. Okay, let's see if she has access now. Go back to here and refresh, and still doesn't seem to be an issue. There's something to do with her password. See, it says Dasha, a localhost using password, yes. Okay. Any other issues that it could be? Right? I haven't connected. I haven't done anything yet. This is my syntax. So MySQL host is equal to host address, DB is equal to DB name, right? That is all correct. Here's my new DB thing. That's the exact object that I want. What else could it be? It's throwing an exception, right? And I know what the exception is. I'm getting full recall here on what it could be, right? It says fatal error, uncaught, blah, 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 PDO exception. SQL state, access denied for user Dasha, localhost, da, 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 da. Right? Let's try another name. That's another thing we can try. Maybe I put the wrong password in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what I said, right? And maybe somehow that password is incorrect. Let me try another name. We'll try, instead of user Dasha, oh, here's something else we should probably look at. How does user Dasha appear as a user? Dasha, lowercase, right? And look how I have both. I have this one and I have this one, right? It's almost like I created a new user. So that's a problem too. Capital D, maybe it's case sensitive. What do you think? Is that possible? Dave? Yeah? Now this is something new. Catchable fatal error. Object of class PDO could not be converted to string in C users Tom desktop index.php on line 9. Okay? Well, that's something else. I know what that's caused by. Do you know what that's caused by?
Because you use an echo and a construct to print a string and the object is not a string.
So if I'm watching vision. So this object here, .db, can I do is there a toString? Does that exist for PHP? Can I do some kind of db.toString? Is that possible? I mean, it is in other languages, right? Every other language, right? But is it the same with thing? No, right? We're trying to access something. We have a fatal error, call to an undefined function toString, right? And that's the problem. But we did connect. Our connection is solid, right? It's just that I'm trying to print out the DB, and that's no good. What other things are a part of the DB? What other values that can we print out with the database, right? I don't need Visual Studio for now. So I can't do this. Could I print out something like the DSN? Is that possible? Can I go like DB? And by the way, is this dot accessor method, is this the right way to use with PHP? Or is there another accessor method? Thank you. The real way to do it is this. That's the real way to do methods. So if there was a toString method or function, if there was, right, then when I refresh, we should see that toString method. But if you notice, call to undefined method, right, of toString, it doesn't exist. So it doesn't exist. How about instead of a method, you know, I want a property. I want to get the DSN property. Is that possible? Can I do something like DB, you know, DSN? Can I do that? Is that possible? And it has to be kind of saved. I want to kind of see what we can get, right? Can we print these things out? Well, that's interesting. It says, notice undefined property, PDO, MySQL, H, right? And this is what you're going to get a lot of times. When you're trying something, I'm trying off the cuff, right? I'm trying to see if I can get the name. Notice it tells me the MySQL localhost. It says undefined property, PDO, MySQL, H, a localhost. DB name is this, right? So how do I do that? How do I access a property? Yes. That's totally different. That's another way, right? PDO is this PHP data object we're trying to access. So we're actually creating a data object, and it's full of additional information. So the first thing we need to do, which I've shown you, is how to connect. And I've done the connection. I'm not just fooling around and putting other things in there. So if I take this away as an example, right? And if I go back to this, we're connected. If I go back to here and go to here and refresh, we're good. We've made our connection. There's no errors, okay? The stuff that I was trying to do, notice it happened before all the HTML occurred, okay? Next, after we connect, we've connected to the database. We can handle exceptions. We can put that in a switch case, right? Or a try-catch equivalent. And it's exactly what it says here. Here's the database connection to this new connection. And then if we're good, right, we're going to echo you are connected to the database. If not, we're going to say there's an error message and there's a PDO exception type message with exactly like it is in other languages, and we're going to print that out. Okay, whatever that issue is. So we can't connect to the database somehow. Because otherwise we're going to get that ugly exception, that ugly error we got at the beginning. So it's always a good idea when connecting to the database to put in some kind of exception handling, right? And that would be done not here, but rather here when we do this line here. Because this is nothing. This is just assigning variables. This doesn't mean anything, right? It's here when we do this case or you know, statement, right? So I want to do some kind of try-catch. Oops. I want to do a try-catch. So try and do this, right? Catch. In a catch statement, you want to put in a, you know, of type PDO exception. I'm not getting any code hinting here, which is great, right? I'm just saying. There's no code hinting. PDO exception. finger typing errors galore, E, right? And what I want to say is I want to take this piece, if you've ever done error handling before, I want to kind of grab this, put it in my try catch, my try loop, right? This is like if this works, then do something, you're okay. If not, do this. And then kind of echo what the statement is. So kind of do something like echo, and you want to echo the error, which we're going to get the error message. And there it is. Look, get message, error, and we're accessing the get message method of the E, right? So we're going to say message, right, is equal to the, when I say E, that's the error itself, and then the get error message, right? A message is the error message that we're getting. Sorry, get message, not get error. See what happens when I don't use, when we have no code hinting? Actually good learnings. It's just harder, right? And that's why I'm going to switch to some other editor. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of put in exactly what it says here, echo and an error occurred, that kind of stuff into the database, right? So we're going to say echo, an error occurred, right? Can I do plus? Does that work with PHP, or is there something else? How do I concatenate strings in PHP? Anyone else? Dot. Right? And then it would be the error message, right? Can I do this? The message? That work? Well, we can try this, first of all. Well, now that we have this code, you guys all have this code? We can try it by refreshing, right? And if it doesn't work, it will come up with it. Let's make an error happen. Let's change Dasha to Tasha, right? We'll spell her name incorrect, right? So we don't have a name Dasha anymore. It's Tasha. Can Tasha connect to the database? No. And if we do, we're going to get an error occurred, SQL state, access denied for user Tasha, a local host. So it won't be as ugly. And you can do a little bit more with this one than you did before, right? And it tells you exactly what the error is, 1045. So error handling definitely works and is alive. We're good. Error, the user is called Dasha in this case. Dasha, we're going to use your name for the rest of the semester. That's it. From now on, everyone's going to know who you are, including the YouTube and the World Wide Web. We're going to advertise, it's you, right? We'll use another name next week. Okay. So try catch, right? We'll do this part. That's what that is all about. And then when we get to modifying data, we want to make some kind of select statement. Again, you guys should know select statements from using, what kind of database you guys learned? DB2, I'm guessing? Is it IBM DB2? Do you know what database you're accessing before?
No idea.
You have no clue.
We're just doing commands.
Is it MySQL? This stuff here? Not now. I'm talking before when you were learning database, right?
Yeah.
And MySQL you're doing there too?
Yeah,
Yeah, we know nothing about database.
I know nothing.
Fantastic. That means I'm telling you stuff that you should be already learning on the other side. That's great.
Yeah, no, this is very good.
Basically.
Fantastic. You're going to learn more from them. So here's the thing. So first we need to make a query. This is on page 9 or page 10 of my PowerPoint, right? I'm going to zoom in here because I want to talk about this, what this does. What we want to do is the following. We want to make something called a select statement. Now, when I use select star from, here's the way that the query language works. Select says, hey, get. Get. Star means everything. Get everything from the table that's called products. What's our table called? Games, right? So our GameDB is our thing. Game, are you saying it's game? Are you trying to trick me? It's games, man. GameDB is our database, right? So if I look at this, and if I go to this, games, right? That's our table. Our table is games. Our games table, right? So again, I want to do my query, which is select star from games. That's what I want to do, right? And I can put that right in here. So go back to here. Here's my query now. I'm going to do this all at once, right? So here's my query. So query is equal to, in brackets, select star from, and lowercase games, because that's what it was called. That's our query. select statement, basically what it does, it tells you, it tells the data access object, right, to say something like this. It says, hey, go to the table games and read every element of that table, every row of that table, and return it into an object called, when we do the query, it's going to be a query object. We're going to see this in a second. And this is the statement. So this is the query. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, database, prepare the query. That's what we're going to do. Okay? Prepare the query. And then once we're done, there's also something called bind value. We're going to talk about what bind value is. And notice that there is a category ID and a category ID. We have a couple of things that we've never seen before. And I'm going to show you where this is. Here's something different. Select star from products, select star from games, where my game ID is equal to my game ID, right? What does this mean, kind of thing? What am I talking about here? Well, I can really do something like this. I can sort through where I only want certain IDs, but not all of them, right? And I can look at, maybe I had a category of type of game that I'm playing, and I can signify that here. But I want to do this one, right? And I definitely wanted to do the db-prepare. db-prepare means use the prepare method and pass a reference to the query object, the query statement in there, all right? So that's my statement. Statement, right, again, is equal to db and prepare. Then inside my db prepare, what I want to do in here is I want to pass a reference to the query. Okay. Are we good so far? When I pass a reference to the query, it's almost like I'm doing that, preparing the prepare method. What it does is it reformats the query and makes it usable so I can connect it and I can use it on the database, right? If I don't do prepare, it doesn't add other meta tags and other kinds of things. It kind of processes the query, the raw string, into something that's recognizable by the database. That's what it does, all right? And then the execute statement. Notice here we're binding, but here we're not. We're just executing, right? So where is the data found? Where does it take the data? Where does it put the data? If I just do a statement like this, prepare. So again, prepare. I talked about this, right? And again, what it does is it returns a PDO statement object, and within the SQL statement, you can use a colon to add parameters to the statement. So I want to prepare something. Bind value binds the specified value, right, to the specified parameter in the prepared statement. Here's my parameter. In this case, the parameter is category ID, right? We don't have that in the prepare statement, right? With a specific value, category ID. I want to bind this. That's the value. I want to bind this to the category ID. So I can actually put in a variable inside my statement, right? So it's not hard-coded. Otherwise, I would have to put where my category ID is equal to 1. I have to put a hard-coded value in there. But if I do this, it binds the value into the statement, and then I execute. All right, so let's execute now. So if I do statement, execute, if I can spell properly. What this does is it makes the statement go, right? So it actually, kind of executes the statement on the database, all right? Now my statement object receives the data somehow, right? Because that's what happens. So one, it executes. My query is what my statement is going to look like, but that's it. I really don't have anything else going on right here so far, right? I'm just executing. Now I can go through this more, but what I'm looking really for is, okay, now that I execute the statement, right, as an example, I want to, and again, I want to take a look at this. I want to fetch the data from my, it says returns an array for the next row in the result set, right? That's what the fetch does. So my product variable in this case is a product array. I would have to, and that's how it works here in PHP. So if you're lost, don't worry about it. I'm going to go through and categorize everything again. And for those people who need help, please see me after at B230, and I'll explain it line by line, right? But this product is, because this fetch method returns an array, product basically stores the array, and I can access it later. For example, product, and then when I'm accessing it here, the name of my ID or the name of something else. Let me explain that. So here, I'm going to use statement. I'm going to use product. So here's product. And instead of product, we're going to call it games or game, right? My games array is equal to what? It's going to be my statement, right? Fetch. Right? So what this does is it looks at the statement data, the data that I just got, and converts it to something that's compatible, as an array, and then saves that array data inside games, the games variable. So games is now an array, not just a regular variable. And you guys are like, "What? He's gone too long. I'm tired. I want to stop." Right? This is enough.
That's getting there, but it's not.
Where's my Counter-Strike 1.6? Right? That's all I want right now. I want to go home. I want to go into the fetal position. This is just too much for me. Right? Right? Just say it. I don't know. Right?
I'm glad you record these.
I know, eh?
I know, I'm rewatching this. So
But it's all right from the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint actually is, I'm just looking at the PowerPoint and I'm just relating it to us, right? It's there for you too, right? So I've got my statement, I execute my statement, right? So I run the statement on the database. Here I return an array. So that's what this is. This returns an array. That's what this does, right? And so now games is an array. Yes.
I'm just a little bit confused because we have a statement and execute, and where does statement become like the
Array?
What's executed? Is it like over
Execute gets run on the server. So this gets run on the server, on the DB server. Right? So I take my statement, I run on the server just like we did before with PHP. When I go back over here, when I do some kind of statement in here like this select from games, that's what's happening. Select from games is what I'm really doing, right?
Yeah, but my question is basically, are we like overwrite? Are we saving in statement what we got from execution, or?
Yes, but we're getting it in a raw way. We're getting it in a way that's unusable for us in the beginning. We need to convert that. We need to convert that into an array, and the way to do that is to use the fetch method, right? So this is what we do. So first we execute it, and then we convert it into an array, okay? And now games is an array, and what's it an array of? It's actually a dictionary with key value pairs, okay? And for those people who don't know what a dictionary is, think about it this, or a map, all right? The name, the key is the name that we have in our fields. All of our columns, it's the column name. So I'm going to say games and then square brackets, the name of my field. For example, name, right? So games name. And I can put that anywhere in here. I can echo games name somewhere in here, right? And it's going to be a specific one, right? Because I'm returning everything, all my games, right? So a table of games, right? Not just one game. Now notice also that they do something in the end. After they fetch everything, we close the cursor. Closing the cursor, right? And then, by the way, this returns only one row, right? But I'm returning many rows, okay? Many, many rows. So what I want to do is when I close the cursor, notice that I can do this, 0, 1, 2. And notice that my product code, my product name, and so on, this is one product that I'm using, right? I can also do it this way, using an index for each column, right? But what if I'm returning an array of multiple rows? How do I deal with that? Well, first of all, we have to know what's inside the array, right? So remember that we want to kind of return something. And I know that my row, if I go, games 1, that should be my name, right? If I remember correctly. Let's try this out. So I'm going to echo just here at the top, games. 0 is it starts with 0, zero-based counting, right? 0 is the ID, and then 1, right, should be the the name, right? If we have this correct. But remember, games is a multi-dimensional array, right? So if I do this echo statement, and if I'm right, and not be right, if I'm right, if I press refresh, you can see that I get Counter-Strike 1.6. Does this make sense?
Oh, that's surprisingly, yes. Setup.
I know setup sucks, but once you get going, it's not that bad. So now I've got Counter-Strike 1.6, but I want to kind of print out I want to kind of use a friendly name for this because this makes no sense. So what if I did something like this? If I said, well, I want to look at not just this, but the name. How is this going to affect it? Is it just the first one? I'm returning more than one. I've got three. I've got three different objects inside my table, right? There's 3 games. Was it going to return all of them? Is this going to make name an array of names? What is it going to do? Error, right? Okay, why is that? So let's go back and try that. Because remember, I'm looking for name, capital N. If I do this, I get the same thing. Look, did I save? Okay, let's kind of look at, instead of name, let's talk cost, right? Because now we know that's something different. I don't know what it is for costs, but I'm accessing costs, and if I refresh, 22, right? That's accurate. It's 22 something. What happened to the other digits? How come I'm not getting those? It's trying to convert them to a string, and it's not converting nicely. We'll talk about that later. But that works, right? So it kind of gives me the costs of my first level, right? How about, but this doesn't make any sense. Is that what? I want to look at more than one row. I'm returning multiple rows in my array, right? How big is my array? Can I do games.length? Is that possible? Is there a length? Is there a length to this array? Can I do something like this, or length or a count? A length. Can I do this? Talking about arrays, right? And I'm going to get an error, of course, because there is no length. So PHP array length. I mean, and you know what the problem is? I'm totally forgetting. Not you, it's me. Size of. Count. Right? The count method, right? I thought it was either count or length. There we go. So if I go count, PHP count, if that's correct, and refresh. Oh, it's not that either. Games is an array, right? So I want to get how many objects are in my array. How can I find that, guys? Or is it just count? Array count? I don't think so. Same problem. Yeah, even worse. Oh, it's got to be the dash. Dash greater than, right?
You have to put brackets.
No, because what it is with PHP, right? Now it says 5 and 7. Count all elements in an array or something in an object. Oh,
There,
size of might be better. Count to text recursion, and it gives me the, oh, count. I'll be okay. Just use count like this. Echo counts. All right. Count games, and if I go back to this and go back to this and refresh, 22. How come it said 22 again? It said games. There's no 22 games, but I got a count value of 22. Does that make any sense? No, right? And if I go size of, so if I games and then size of, you're saying, or size of games, it counts how many there are, as opposed to, or do we do it the other way? I think I do size of games, if I'm not wrong. I don't think you do it this way. I think you do it size of. You can't do it this way, because there is no property like this, right? It doesn't work like this. I'll give you an error again. It means like this, size of, and then we just put this bracket over here, so the size of games, that's the size of games. Am I going to get the magical answer again? Am I going to get 22? If I get 22 again, it's going to drive me crazy, right? Why is it 22? My cursor? Is that what you're saying? Do I have to close my cursor? So what you're saying is statement.close cursor is I do after I assign the fetch, right? But that doesn't make any sense because I've already done everything I need to do, right? So once I've done the fetch, this just cleans things up. That's what this does. Statement, right? And then dot close cursor. Close cursor, right? That's what that does right there, right? That just cleans things up. I don't have to do this. And if I do, everything is good. But this this. I can do a single row, but what if I want to do multiple rows? How does that work? Well, if you look further down, and I have some examples for you guys, right? So if I work with all rows of a data set, right, there is the solution here. So statement, I'm not going to bind any values. I'm just going to get everything. Now notice it says instead of fetch, so I did two. I did fetch, and now we're going to use fetch all. Fetch fetches one. Fetch all fetches them all, right? But now we have a problem. How do I access multiple rows? Now this is a for each loop, for each product and products, right? As product. I want to do that. But now let's try the same thing. But why would it give me size of 22? It's the last thing that's in the array, right? Let's do fetch all. So instead of fetch, we're going to use fetch all. Now what I want to do, instead of size of games, right, we're going to do a for each loop, right? And again, if you notice the for each loop, the way it's done, it's the same as we have in other languages, and we're saying for each products as product. It's the other way around. Okay, so for each games as game, and then in the game loop, we're going to put these statements. We're going to echo a bunch of times, right? Let's try this out. It's going to be all on the same line, by the way. So for each, then we'll say games as game. In other language, we always think about the other way around. For every game in the games collection, loop, right? In this case, we're doing something like this. Echo, we're going to echo the game 0, which is the ID. Echo, we'll say game 1, which is the name. And just to be funny, we'll echo the costs. Can we do this? For each game says game. Let's see what happens. And when I run it and refresh, we get Counter-Strike 1.6, 22.22, Overwatch, right, and Halo. We get all of them. They're not really formatted nice, right? But they're all there, right? And we're getting 1 because that's the ID, 2 because that's Overwatch, and 3 because that's Halo in ID-wise, right? Now, how do I take this and format it inside my code? It's actually quite simple, right? What we need to do, and this is I'll leave you with this one, right? Because next week we'll talk about we're reading from the database right now, right? Next week we'll write to the database or we'll create some data, insert data into the database, and then we'll do the other ones, update and delete. This is nice here, right? But we're doing it at the top of our code. All of our HTML lives down here, right? So I got to take this for each. I'm going to cut it, right? And down in here inside my code, let's say underneath my PHP or this stuff, I'll kill my paragraph tag, right? And I'll do something like this. I'll put a UL tag, unordered list, right? With, I want to put 3 LIs, right? Right? Okay. And inside there, is it 3 LIs, or do I even need that? Right? I need an unordered list is what I need, right? And then I can put that for loop in there. That's for each, right? But I need to surround this because remember it's an embedded language, right? I need to surround the for each loop. I kind of tab in there to make it look nice. I need to surround this with PHP, right? And each for each loop, I want to include all of this, right, as a list item. So for each loop, I want to echo, right, a list item. That's what I want to do. So a list item. That's what I want to do. And I also want to echo the list item at the bottom, right? So for each loop, I want to do this. Okay, so inside there is all the data. That's where all the data is going to be, right? And this is all text. That's all this is going to be. This is all text data that I'm looping for, right? And I got to put this inside. It's still going to look ugly, but I want to put this inside of a PHP statement here, and I want to end up this loop with an ending PHP statement down there, right? Make sense? So I got a list item, and for each UL in my UL under a list, I'm going to run a bunch of rows. They're going to be pretty ugly. There's not going to be any space between all of them, right? Because there's no spacing here. If I want to add spacing, I could do that. I could add some kind of spacing here. I could also combine all this into one, which is probably smarter. So I could do something like this, right? Plus, space, and instead of pluses, I'm going to use dots because that's the way to do it, right? And I'm not putting any rows or anything or any columns. I'm just doing, you know, plus, I messed this dot here. So dot, space, dot, space, dot, and then put this over here. Right? Does that make sense? This is what is going to be, this is like a long string of characters. And I could have made a string to do this, game 1, game 2, whatever. And that'll be the ID. That's the header row, right? With a name, you know, the name and the cost. I don't have the other rows in there yet, but I will. Let's check it out and see if it works, and we'll stop right there, okay? No code, there's no styling to it right now. Yeah. Questions? Yeah. Okay, I'll come back to you. Guys, thank you so much. Next week, we're going to prettify this. We're going to make this nice. This looks pretty darn ugly. We're going to put it in a table where it belongs, right? And then next week, we're going to do the other operations. All right? Thank you so much, and see you next week. Take a look at this code. Try and replicate this on your own so it works for you.